and welcome to Growing Kentucky's Leaders. I'm one of your hosts, Sheldon McKinney.
And I'm your other host, Ruth Ann Fink.
And today we are thrilled to keep introducing you to the 2025-2026 Kentucky FFA State Officer Team. Today we have with us Dawson Hall, the Lincoln Trail Region State Vice President, and State President Aiden Manley. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank y'all for having us.
Yeah. Dawson, we will start with you. Tell us a little bit about who you are, where you come from, and what you're doing this year.
Of course. Well, hello, everybody. My name is Dawson Hall. As Sheldon said, I'm Lincoln Trail State Vice President this year. I'm from Rhineville, Kentucky, and I was from the John Hardin FFA chapter. I go to the University of Kentucky, and I study agricultural education and advocacy.
Yeah. And tell us a little bit more, like what was your essay like in high school? And I also want you to mention this new internship you have with the University of Kentucky.
Of course. So my SAE was small animal production. Basically, I worked at a pet store for a little bit, and then I received a launch grant from the foundation, and then I integrated a small animal STEM lab into my school. With that STEM lab, I was able to educate new students, so it became kind of small animal and kind of ag education at the same time. But it was small animal production. I was able to work on my own dogs, staff dogs, and then any officers that I had from my chapter if they wanted to bring in any of their animals. We worked on them, and it was a part of our vet science and small animal classes. And then my internship is with the University of Kentucky. It's sports turf. It's kind of plant soil sciences. So basically, I work for the athletics, and we work on football, soccer, softball, tennis, and track. We make sure all their athletic complexes outside are really good. Check the soil, check the temperature of the soil, and different stuff like that. So it's a really, really awesome job. I love it.
Yeah. You get to
That's
be on
super
the
neat.
games sometimes and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
How
Yeah.
did you get that internship, Dawson? If people are listening, they're like, I want to do that one day. Tell us how you found
So
yourself
funny
there.
story. We were at Chili's at one of our trainings, and I saw on Facebook that our boss was hiring for it. And I just DM'd him and said I'd love to do this, and he said, I see you're a state officer in FFA. I was a part of FFA at Washington County, which is in my region, which is really cool. And
Oh,
he said,
neat.
you're a freshman. I'd love you to get on this. This kind of can work towards your major a little bit. So I got the job, and I've never looked back since. And I'm hoping to have it all 4 years of college.
That is so cool. So, people,
Yeah.
if you're listening, shoot your shot. That's your lesson here is send that DM for the job that you want, and you never know what might happen. So, awesome, Doc. That's really cool. Aiden, welcome back. We'll hop over to you next. If people are listening and they're regular listeners, they've heard from you before on our show. We're so glad to have you back in this capacity. So why don't you just remind our listeners who you are, where you come from? Let's hear about your SAE when you were in high school and what you're doing this year.
Yeah, so if everybody just needs a little refresher, I'm Aiden Manley. I'm blessed to serve as this year's Kentucky FFA state president. And I'm from the Menifee County FFA chapter. And in Menifee County, I actually lived in the Daniel Boone National Forest in a small community by the name of Big Woods. So come from that little tiny area, not a lot of agriculture, living on a farm going on there, but I was still able to be involved in FFA because of agricultural education, because of my ag teacher. And through FFA, I got to be involved in a lot of things. And one of the biggest things for me was my supervised agricultural experience that was actually in agricultural education. I was the intern for the entire last year in our ag department for ag ed, where I got to work with students daily from the shop to the greenhouse, kind of assisting Mr. Cash and Miss Elaine there in any way I could, running small errands. But I also got to host a podcast called Seeds of Success with my best friend Colton Rudd, where we interviewed leaders in agricultural education. It's actually what brought me to this podcast the last time I was on it. I'm so excited to be back on today. And I'm now at the University of Kentucky trying to continue my passion for agricultural education by majoring in it and hopes to be an ag teacher one day.
It's so great. We love following you guys and seeing what you're up to.
I think you both have such unique stories and you both have really unique SAE programs and you're from very different areas. Elizabethtown, Menifee County, it's really different, but you all both have some similar paths and have carved a unique path for yourselves in FFA. So pretty cool. This summer, you have been in state officer training all summer. I think it probably would shock people how much time, money, effort we put in to making sure that this year, as you serve as a state officer, that you can confidently represent the 24,000 plus Kentucky FFA members that you all get to speak for. So I want to ask you, throughout the many trainings you've had, what was the biggest learning curve that you were like, whoa, I have got to work on this? Or just something that you knew, you maybe had no idea that this was something that we were going to talk about to train you on, but what was the biggest learning curve for you all? Dawson, you go first.
So my biggest learning curve, I think, is just really understanding where I am now. I grew up around FFA. My dad was my advisor, my ag teacher. So I've been around it for my entire life. And when I entered as a freshman in high school, I thought I knew everything about FFA and agriculture education, but that was the complete opposite. I knew absolutely nothing. Through my 4 years of high school, I grew as a leader and as a person. And then when I became a state officer, it was just hard to kind of figure out that I'm here now. Like all of my growth from my freshman year of high school until now, it really impacted me to know that I deserve to be here and I deserve to help out the over 24,000 members of our association, that understanding that I deserve it and I love it. There's just, it's hard for me to kind of understand that I deserve to be here and I really understand my growth with agriculture education and FFA. So that was the biggest learning curve I had to overcome.
Okay.
For me, the biggest learning curve was finding a sense of self-confidence, but then also realizing how much humility you have to have and how much self-reflection you have to continue to improve throughout your year. I've always known, self-reflection is so important. Going over things you've done well and you haven't done well is so important. But at our first 7-day training, right after we were elected, and we were thrown into that with each other, that was a big key part of it. Kolb's learning cycle, constantly reflecting and analyzing on the things that you've done. It just opened my eyes up. And at the beginning of that training, going back to the self-confidence part, I did not feel like a state officer. I'm sure 11 other people can be right alongside me with that. And on the first day when we walked in there, Mr. Koff was probably like, "You're sitting right here and thinking, where are the real state officers at? You probably don't feel like them." But he said, "I promise by the end of this, whenever you get to put your jackets on, you're going to feel like we are the real state officers and we are the ones that are going to go out and make this impact." So it took probably that entire training for me to feel that way. And honestly, this whole entire summer for me to feel like a real state officer and to just continue to see how much self-reflection is important to continue to improving. But I can say by now, after all the trainings we've went through after camp, state officer summit, I'm starting to begin to feel like I can really go out and make an impact on members whenever I'm talking to them in day-to-day interactions or doing workshops or anything that we get the opportunity to do.
Guys, I really appreciate those very transparent responses. Thanks for being vulnerable with us, because I think a lot of people listening, especially folks in your all's generation, students that are maybe listening to this episode, probably feel the same way if they've been given a leadership role in their local chapter, or maybe they are a younger member and they're aspiring to have a leadership role in their chapter, or they don't see where they fit in. They might feel the same way of like, can I do that imposter syndrome of just self-doubt. And FFA gives you all what you need to succeed, and you have it in you. It just takes being bold and putting yourself out there and asking for help and mentorship along the way. So yeah, those are real feelings that I think you all are not alone in having. So I appreciate you all sharing that. And it kind of leads me to my next question. I recently had a middle school ag teacher reach out to me. She sent me an email and she said, "Hey, I really want to use one of these podcast episodes to show my middle schoolers just like what FFA is. Which ones do you recommend?" And so I immediately thought, I said, you could pull any episode where we're talking to an FFA member, specifically a state officer, and what their experience was from their point of view. And so I wanted to ask you all, if you were talking directly to a younger FFA member, whether middle school or high school, they're starting the school year, maybe we're approaching fall break, like we're kind of getting our feet under us, what would you tell them? What would you say to encourage those younger FFA members sitting in an ag class maybe for the first time? Let's start with you this time, Aiden.
Yeah, so this is a great question. I think one of the first things I would say to kind of appeal to that middle schooler or maybe even a freshman is you're going to get to skip a lot of school. You're going to go on a lot of great field trips around Kentucky this year and just have a great time. But then kind of just getting into the more serious side of it, I would tell them that one, you're going to get leadership experience. You're going to learn how to speak. You're going to learn how to shake a hand and do all these things that you've sat in a classroom for your entire school career and said, I wish I was learning real world skills. So many times I hear students say, why am I going to need XYZ whenever I go out into the real world? Well, FFA is going to teach you those things that you're going to need in the long run. And then I'm going to tell you that you probably feel like they probably are going to feel like it's a really large task to get involved in FFA because of those things they might be scared of, like public speaking, or again, going back to self confidence. They don't have that belief in themselves. So I would say just do not compare yourself to others or those high upperclassmen that seem like they all have it figured out and like they're so skilled.
Yeah.
Just I'll tell them that it's all a learning process. You're going to get better as you continue to just take opportunities. So jump on every single opportunity and just continue to learn and grow. I've talked to so many younger members this year and I've asked them, hey, do you want to do the creed this year? Or are you going to get involved in this contest? And I've got the same response so many times. I'm not a good speaker. I don't think I can do that. I'm not as good as this person. It doesn't matter. All it is an opportunity to learn and grow and just become the best version of yourself, whether you win that competition or not. So I would just tell them you're getting a lot of field trips, you're going to have a great time, and you're getting countless opportunities to just grow and become the best version of you.
Oh, that's great. Dawson, I see you nodding along here, but what would you add?
Yeah.
What would you say to those younger FFA members starting out?
The thing I would say to younger FFA members is that no matter where you come from, no matter what your passions are, FFA is a place for you. Not only is it a place for you, it's a place for you to grow. Of course, there's going to be those freshman members that say, I don't know if I can be here. I didn't come from a farm. I didn't come from an ag background. I'm not a good public speaker. This isn't for me. The thing I always tell them is that no matter where you come from, no matter your background, you have a place in FFA. And if you stick with that pace, you stick with FFA, you're going to learn that where you are now to where you want to end up will be dramatically changed because of FFA, because the public skills you learn, public speaking skills, I apologize, the public speaking skills you learn, the people you get to impact in your community, the people you get to meet every day, you're going to grow in your place now. And with FFA, that's all you can do is grow from where you are now to where you want to go. So that's always the thing I would tell them is that obviously you're going to go on a bunch of field trips, you're going to be able to go out of school for a lot of times, and that's really cool. You get to see so many cool people, but the thing that's always impactful to me and what I always try to tell people is that your story will grow in FFA.
You discover so much about who you are, and just there is just an incredible growth trajectory throughout FFA. And for you all as state officers this year, we get to say at the retiring and newly elected state officer lunch every year. I look and I'm like, the new state officers next year when they retire, they're not going to be the same people. You are going to have a transformative year in who you are. And when I was an ag teacher, you got to watch that too. From how you meet a student to how they leave your program, it is transformational, and that's part of the fun. That's part of the process. It takes all of it. You can't just start on third base. You got to make the whole way around. My next question is about chapter visits, but we were talking before we started recording about being inclusive. And really, I think a key value of what I believe as a person is that people are just waiting to be invited. People are waiting to say, hey, do you want to come to this thing? Do you want to have lunch? Do you want to be on our team? People are waiting for somebody to look and include them. And I hope that we encourage you all to do that as state officers. But what we need chapters to do is they have to invite you to come and make a chapter visit and to get to visit with their members. So why don't you tell us, if a chapter wants you to come and interact, how do they reach out to you? What are some things that you would love to come do with chapters or that you have done? Like, what makes a great local visit? Dawson, you start.
Of course, so to contact me, you just got to email me at dawson.hall@koafa.org, shoot me a text. It's on my business card. But the thing I love to go do with chapters most is not only workshops, but also just seeing them having fun. going to different cookouts or chapter bashes, whatever it might be. Seeing FFA members actually have fun in FFA, like they're excited to be here, is what I love going to do because I get to learn so much more about their stories. Just having some conversation, waiting for the food to come out, or waiting in the water slide for a for a back to school bash, whatever it is. I get to learn more about the members, their stories, where they come from by being at something that's a lot of fun. And I do love workshops as well because I get to see how members are already growing in their spaces, whether it's from chapter officers, committee chairs, or chapter members. I can already see their growth just from the trajectory of a workshop, from the 45 to an hour we have to do it. Just seeing them from the start of it, maybe not wanting to talk, and then at the end they're just shouting out answers every single time they're getting called on. That's always the coolest thing for me to see. It's not only their story and where they come from, but also their growth just in an hour of seeing them.
Yeah. Aiden, what about you? What have been some of the most meaningful chapter interactions you've had as a state officer or as a member when you got to invite people to come to Menifee County?
The most meaningful thing for me with state officer visits is just those one-on-one interactions. Whenever state officers like Jackson Baird or Caroline Grove have came to my chapter, I know whenever they've just had one-on-one conversation with me, it has been the most meaningful and impactful. And so far this year, I've got to go to a few chapters, not to necessarily give a workshop yet, kind of just to go to their back to school functions and hang out with people. So you can always invite us just to come hang out at an event. We can give greetings. We can lead a workshop. But as state officers, one of our main goals is always just to make connections with every single member there and to lift them up and encourage them in any way that we can to be involved in FFA. We want to bring the FFA mission to your school and also be a peer to all those chapter members there so they can see someone that's really close to their age, that's really living out FFA, and that can speak to all the opportunities available, but also just be such an encourager constantly. I've had so many state officers that have visited my chapter, like I mentioned earlier, that have been a big part in me wanting to be a state officer now because they were so encouraging, so uplifting. So that's really what makes the most meaningful chapter visits for me is whenever you just get those one-on-one connections and lift someone up.
Mm. There's a lot to being a state FFA officer. We talked quite a bit about that, but if people are listening, I want them to know, like, yes, you all are state FFA officers this year. Yes, you are leaders in your homes and in your families. You have really cool internships you're managing, but you're also full-time college students. And that's a lot on one person's plate, and quite a transition, going from high school to now, I'm managing all these very different demanding things, and you all do it so well and make it look very easy. But as we're recording this, you all have finished a few weeks. You've just wrapped up a few first weeks of college. So share with us just how has that transition been? Any tips that you would want to give other people that might be in your shoes in the future? Aiden, we'll start with you this time.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna lie and say that it was just such a smooth, easy transition because it absolutely was not. We went from being at the state fair to going to college and being away from home. I will say the first week of college was a lot of fun because classes hadn't really started yet, and you got to just go play basketball or hang out with friends, meet new people. So that
Mhm.
was a really great time. But then classes picked up, and I quickly realized that I needed to figure out how to manage my time as best as possible because you have a homework for this class due and you might have forgot about that assignment and it's due tomorrow or tonight. So using a calendar or a academic planner is going to be your best friend. You might think that you didn't need that in high school, but whenever you get to college, things are just going to slip your mind. You have so much going on that you need a way to stay organized and to keep your priorities in line. So I've just been using I have a big desk calendar on my desk right now. I have to-do lists in my notes app that have just kind of kept me organized. And I would also give the tip that you need to do your work first, but you also need to be able to go out and have fun with your friends, whether that's going to the rec center or just going out to eat. Find ways to have fun, to relax sometimes, and just enjoy life, enjoy the experience, even with all the stress on top of you. And I'm glad that I've got to been able to do that so far because that's really helped with the transition.
Yeah, it's a special 4 years. And you got to do what works for you. So, Dawson, what tips would you have? What's working for you as you manage all this?
So funny story. The day I left for state fair, the next day is the day I moved into UK. So I was kind of like a little time crunch. I had to get everything packed up into my car and on my way to Lexington. So that was a little stressful, but once I got onto campus, it was just so cool just seeing the amount of people. Just there's so many people and so many different connections I was able to make within my first week. But kind of what Aiden said, when classes first started, things just started slipping your mind. You have maybe this event coming up, you have this assignment due, you need to study for this quiz and this test. There's just so much going on at one time that you really have to stay organized and really have to stay on top of things. Like, don't wait for assignments to be due at 11:59. Do them the day they're assigned. That's the biggest tip I can give because that's happened to me twice already where I'm like, oh my gosh, it's 11 o'clock at night. I have 59 minutes to do an assignment. So that's the biggest advice I got is just making sure you're staying on top of things. I also have a calendar. It's not a big desk calendar like Aiden, but I have one in my backpack
Hey,
that I
do
can
what
always
works
keep
for you.
track of. I do use my notes app to keep assignments due. That's the biggest thing I can say is just staying organized and do your work as it comes, not as it's due.
And I have
And
something.
that's probably great advice for any student, not just a
Yes.
college student. For any student, that's probably very good advice.
I have something to add to that too.
Yeah.
Make sure you get to know your professors once you're in college.
Mhm.
It's
Yes.
always great to have that connection. Just yesterday, I'm going to tell on myself a little bit. I did this assignment. I had it completed, all 2 pages of this paper done, but I forgot to turn it in. And it was the following morning that I was in class, and I was able to go up to the professor and talk to her. And she was like, "Yeah, I literally saw you working on this in class, and I was confused why you didn't turn it in." But I was just able to go up there and talk to her because I'd made that
Yeah.
connection prior. And she was like, "Just email it to me, it'll be all right." So, really knowing your professors, being outgoing, and making sure you have that connection with them so that they know who you are is very important whenever you do mess up or slip up sometimes. So, you can have a little bit of lenience and grace there.
Yeah.
No, that's good. We're all people at the end of the day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does. In our state officer coaching, we talk a lot about this semester. My topic with the ones I coach is how are you managing your time? What calendar app are you using? Because before you've always had your teachers, a bell schedule, your mother, like many things have been like, do you have all of this done? But now it's a huge amount of leeway for you to figure out how you're doing it with a mountain of work. And so I'm glad you're using a desk calendar. It's sometimes good to go, do you know how to use Google Calendar? And here's a newsflash, guys. I just started using Google Calendar 2 years ago because Ruth Ann was like, you've got to get on Google Calendar because I have been like paper always, but that has helped me be a better leader, help my team understand more about my schedule. It's big for everybody. Those transitions are hard for everybody of kind of figuring out
Yeah.
how you manage. And you have to take the time to manage your time,
Hmm.
which is hard. You have to sit
Yeah,
down.
no one's gonna do it for you.
Yeah. You have to
Yeah.
sit down and go, what's going to happen this week? And where do I have those pockets to fit in? And guys, when I went to college, like Netflix didn't exist. TikTok did not exist. All of these things that can just suck hours of your day without you realizing. So I commend you. It's a lot to manage and you do a good job. So let's hope you do a good job. I don't know. Maybe you're not doing a good job. We'll find out at the end of the semester. But good luck.
Hey, Dawson's my mentee, so I'll keep an eye on
Yeah,
Dawson.
Aiden's mine too.
Yeah.
Eyes on you. But it's a thing. My oldest son just started middle school this year, and at our parent meeting, they were talking about how this is such a huge transitional year because now your child has to have, they have maybe 7 teachers they're answering to. And just this is a huge transition for them to not have somebody to stand on them all the time. And
Mm.
they talked about what a huge deal missing assignments were. And they said for 6th graders, it's not that they're not doing their assignment, it's that they can't find it. They don't know where it is. They forgot to turn it in. And so he's dealing with this, just the management of paper. We all do it, all of the things.
Yeah.
So that's great. Guys, well, we're cheering for you throughout this whole year, this whole process, all these transitions. That kind of concludes our regular questions, but we always ask our guests the same last 3. And Dawson, I'll ask you first, what keeps you motivated as a leader?
What a phenomenal question. Wow, what keeps me motivated as a leader? It's definitely the people I'm leading. Just growing up, like I said, in the ag background, I saw so many phenomenal leaders from chapter officers, state officers, and even national officers. I saw so many impactful leaders, and I saw the genuine care and passion they had for the leaders for the members they were serving. So just keeping that in mind and keeping and just understanding that I'm here for them. I'm not here for a title. I'm not here for anything else. I'm here for the members that I serve. that keeps me motivated as a leader, just knowing that I'm changing their lives, even if I don't even realize it yet. But just as what was one-on-one interactions like Dawson, I had this one at my home chapter. This girl sat down with me and she said, "You have changed my life in so many ways." And I kind of just looked at her and said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "You always cared about where I was if I wasn't at an event. You always asked if I was doing okay. You changed my life and you changed how I view FFA and how I view state officers now. Like even when you became a state officer, you always checked up on me, always called me, always make sure I was still doing okay." And just that conversation hit me a little bit harder than I like to say, because it truly opened my eyes that I can be changing somebody's lives by just saying hi to them, by just having an interaction with them. And that just always keeps me motivated in understanding that I'm doing it for them, not for myself.
It's a good reminder. Our second question we always ask guests, and this one will be yours, Aiden, is about philanthropy. You know, philanthropy is just how we as humans give back to the things we care about, and giving back can be defined in a few different ways. But we like to ask our guests, what's been the most meaningful way you've been able to engage in philanthropy?
Yeah, like you said, philanthropy can happen in a lot of ways. And throughout this year, us state officers are going to get to be involved in philanthropy. It's a big word, sorry.
Yeah, it's a mouthful.
The FFA Foundation, just getting to advocate for that and raise money. But for me personally, one of the most impactful ways that I've been involved in philanthropy is just through everyday interactions. Um, I'll tell this story, and I don't tell it to brag on myself, but this just happened the other day. I was driving to Mount Sterling on Interstate 64 to go meet a friend. And I was on the phone with him. I was running kind of behind. It was just after, or the morning after the Blue and Gold Gala. And I took the wrong exit. And I kind of played it off, and I told him on the phone, like, "Oh, I'm just going to stop off this exit and get some gas." But in my mind, I was kind of ticked because I was like, daggone it, I'm already behind, just took this wrong exit. So I got off the exit and I was looking for any spot to turn around. Wherever I could pull a UE, I was about to do it. But then I saw a gas station ahead. Gas was kind of expensive there. So then again, I was kind of mad, but I looked and I needed some gas. So I pulled over and I got out and I was about to fill up my gas. And this older lady came up to me and it seemed like she was about to cry. She had a very teary voice, like very shaky. And she asked if I could just spare a few dollars to help her out to get home. And so immediately I was like, "Yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot of cash on me right now, but I can give you this and I can help you out." And she was just like, "Anything helps." And I looked over, I saw that she had her son in her car. So I gave her what I had, and she was just so thankful. She was like, "God bless you. Like, thank you for being here right now." And in that moment, it made me realize like sometimes we take a wrong turn in life, but whenever we're going down that path that we thought was a wrong turn or something didn't go our way, it's usually because God knows that there's someone down that path that we can help out, that we can be active in philanthropy for, to really just make their day brighter or even change their trajectory in the long run. So just the most meaningful ways for me are just those everyday interactions where you get to help someone out. You get to help your neighbor out. And for me, your neighbor is just anyone who is in need and that you can help in any way. I've been so blessed to be poured into whenever I was in need. And so just right now with I'm a college student, I don't have the biggest means to give back, but whenever I can in those small ways, that's just the most meaningful to me.
You're so right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a special story. That's great. Thank you both. Well, now let's have a fun answer question. And our last question for both of you is, what is something that you cannot stop talking about? Sometimes it's fun to have you answer it for each other because
Oh, I got
Aiden.
one for Dawson. Can I
All
say
right.
it?
Yeah, why don't you answer for each other,
Okay.
and then we can allow some time for correction if needed.
Dawson cannot stop talking about Texas Roadhouse and how everything is
Here we
made from
go.
scratch.
Here we
Me
go.
either. And let me tell you why. I love Texas Roadhouse.
And
I know
especially
you
what they
love
do with our
Texas Roadhouse.
foundation, Aiden, I shouldn't stop talking about them because they're amazing.
Yes. So people know you worked at Texas Roadhouse in high
I
school.
did.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great company.
Yeah,
We
it's a
also think
phenomenal
it's a great
company.
company. We don't have the final numbers yet, but we're doing the Texas gift card
Mhm.
promotion. 10%
Yes.
of all gift card sales online when you click the one with the FFA emblem from July, August, September goes to Kentucky FFA. This time this podcast airs, we'll probably know the exact number. But in the
Yeah.
first 2 months of that promotion, we have found out that we have broken every record set in gift card sales through Texas Roadhouse, and we still have 3 weeks left to go, but they believe our donation is going to be well over $70,000.
Oh my goodness.
So really, I'm just advocating for the Kentucky FFA Foundation by talking about it.
Exactly.
So I really don't think that's an issue at all. So if you're ever in Elizabethtown, Texas Roadhouse, tell your server that you know me, and they'll say hi to you, and that's just a little
They'll give you an extra roll.
networking, but yeah, just a little connection with the rolls and the steaks, But I've loved working at Texas Roadhouse. Every time my mom asks me where to go, I want to go to Roadhouse. Like, it's just so good. I loved working there, and it also taught me a little bit about just people skills, teamwork, because you can't function in that place without having a team that works. So
it's the busiest place on earth in there. It is like
all the time.
wild, always. Yeah.
So did Aiden get it right? Is that what you also would have said?
I literally have not talked about it in like 2 weeks. So I don't know where
So what would you have said?
With that. So, but you know what? That's okay. So what is Aiden talking about? Oh, that's a great question. Aiden Manley, what have you been talking about lately? I'll probably say it's about schoolwork. Every time I see him, he's just, yeah, I do this assignment for this class, which I think is a great thing. But since he kind of dogged on me for Roadhouse, I kind of got to think it's a little bit worse. But every time I see him, he's always being amazing. He's always working on an assignment. Always looks really good. So he's always talking about school, and we see each other. It's always about Kentucky basketball, Kentucky football. So, but that's kind of what he's been talking about a lot. So I think my answer is a lot more nicer than Aiden's, but that's okay.
Dawson, I think it is nice. Well, we're the biggest fans of Texas Roadhouse over here.
There's no wrong answers here. That's what you need to know. So did you guys get it right? What would you have said for yourselves? Aiden, what would you say that you cannot stop talking about?
I would have went with something a little bit more fun than assignments, but Dawson, I appreciate it, the compliment a lot. And I wasn't dogging on you with Texas Roadhouse. It is the best steak chain, in my opinion. It's a fantastic restaurant. But the sports and the Kentucky basketball, Kentucky football, I 100% agree with that. I'm always looking on my phone for some Mark Pope updates, what the basketball team's practicing right now. And I also always talk about sweet tea. I love sweet tea. That's something about huge, big in my life.
Okay.
Roadhouse also has sweet tea, so
really good sweet tea too.
Yeah.
So,
Dawson, what would you have said? You were really always talking about.
Well, I do talk about Texas Roadhouse a lot because I still get a discount there, so it's always like, hey, if you want to go, I got a discount. So I always talk about that.
Card and then go eat.
Yes. Yeah, that's always what I do. But if I also had to say, it'd also be UK sports. I'm always looking for all of our new videos for our new players. So it's kind of, I guess, that's all me and Aiden talk about is that in FFA. We're always talking about like, oh, did you see if he dunked that, if he made that? So I'll talk about that a lot, but I also talk a lot about my job because I really love my job.
Yeah.
I was on SEC Network behind Mark Stoops for an interview. I didn't even see myself. I didn't even see him. And then somebody sent me a video and said, hey, is that you on TV? I said, oh my gosh, it is. So that was pretty cool. But other than that, that's all I've been talking about lately.
Okay. Now, when we had Matthew on last time, I haven't even prepared you for this. So if we have to cut this is totally fine. But, I asked Matthew, their fellow podcasters, I said, do you all have a question for us that you would like to ask at the end that we could flip it and do that? Okay, Aiden.
Can I ask you what's been on your mind lately? What's something that you can't stop talking about? Is that all right if I flip that around?
Maybe Ruth Ann should actually answer what can I stop talking about that with you?
Yeah, answer for each other. Yeah, do that. Answer for each other.
Oh gosh. Oh, I know what Sheldon's is.
Okay, well, you go.
Sheldon's in the middle of a bathroom remodel, and she has learned about a website called BidFTA. And I'd also just learned about this through Sheldon, but you can buy household items, but then you have to go track them down, and sometimes you get burned. But I'm still learning about this. But she has found some good finds, and I'm excited to see her bathroom remodel.
It hasn't been going that great though, is what you need to know. There is a website, it's an auction resale website. You have to go pick the stuff up at a warehouse. I don't live near any of the warehouses. There's like Georgetown, Florence, Elizabethtown, Louisville. So I found a bathtub that was an $800 bathtub, and I got it for $110. And I was like, this is the best. But my friend had to go get it. And then guess what? They didn't even have my bathtub there. And so it's lost. They're looking for it. So that is what I have been talking about, my bathtub so much. Ruth Ann has been talking about daycare and motherhood. She's got a 5-month-old baby who's thriving at his daycare and just all those fun things. So did we get that right?
Yeah, that's what I would have answered.
And what's
Parent pickup lines and, all the field trips. Like I just did not, it's hilarious that all this applies to a 5-month-old, but we're having a good time with it.
field trip to the orchard? Yeah, and then what we're talking about for work is we have been really recapping the Blue and Gold Gala. How do we keep growing it? How do we make it better? And how do we really do a great job with Bill Gatton's $11 million donation to Kentucky FFA? And what's next for us as a team? What's next for us as for you all as students because of this incredible philanthropy? So that's what we've been talking about while I've been trying to buy a $100 bathtub on my phone. So that's our answer.
Balance. It's all about balance, guys.
Yeah. Well, guys, thank you all so much for being on our show today. Thank you for committing to this year of service. You all are a pleasure to be with. And if FFA members listen to this, they see you all out and about, I hope you all say hi. They're great guys. Thanks for being here.
Thank you all for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us on today. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, and thank you all for joining us on this episode of Growing Kentucky's Leaders. Growing Kentucky's Leaders is a podcast brought to you by the Kentucky FFA Foundation. Our music is performed by Bourbon County FFA member Joe Fritch. Artwork is by Julie Fritch Creative. Your hosts are Sheldon McKinney and Ruth Ann Fink, and you can find us on all social platforms at Kentucky FFA.